Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting all through the lens of self-government, which is designed to help unify families. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the best and worst parenting advice. What is the saying that advice is cheap? Because it is. Anybody can give advice. In fact, we've all received bad parenting advice. I've received bad parenting advice. And one time I actually almost followed it. Before I had my first child, my coworker at work said, I'm going to give you a piece of advice and it will make everything better for you with the baby. And I was like, okay. And they said, do not feed the baby any sooner than every 4 hours, because if not, you'll make the baby spoiled and selfish and you'll never get any time for yourself. And I thought, oh, okay, I didn't know that you could do that to a child, and plus I had no idea how often I should feed the child, So at the hospital, here's my child screaming and screaming, and finally a loving nurse said to me, you need to follow the baby's cues, so the baby's going to let you know what he needs. And usually babies tell you they need food about every 2 to 3 hours at first, and after a while it will increase to more time. And I thought, whoa, what horrible advice that this person, this coworker, gave me. It almost made my existence and the baby's existence horrible. So let's definitely make sure that we don't follow bad parenting advice. I think another piece of bad parenting advice that has been given to me a lot is that you have to make sure you prioritize your me time. And I'm thinking to myself, is that my top priority, me time? I do know that people need time to recharge. That's true. And there are introverts and extroverts. And some people that are introverts might need a little bit more time to recharge. But if I'm going to make my me time my top priority, then I might start thinking of my children as people who are getting in the way of me and what is best for me. And is my parenting really about me? No. I don't like that advice. I think it promotes selfishness and really does parents a disservice because it makes them think that somehow this parenting thing is a burden that gets in the way of what they really need. And I think it's becoming a trend that a lot of parents are thinking that in order to have a good day, they've got to go out and do something for themselves and not be with their children. Well, I'll tell you what, I actually decided to homeschool my children years ago, a decision I never thought I would make, although definitely one of the best decisions I did make because I didn't know a family could be so happy and so unified because we had more time together. We really had the opportunity to work on our relationships. Well, anyway, I realized as I was going through this process of being with my children every single day, day in, day out, that those connections that we had in the family were actually the things that brought me the most purpose, peace, and happiness. Fulfillment too. In fact, I recognized that many people were looking for fulfillment or a purpose for life outside of the home and outside of the walls of their family. And really, the purpose exists right there. And if you really dedicate yourself to it, you find increased happiness in all of the areas of your life because you've put the first things first. So what are the best bits of parenting advice that I received? Well, I want to talk about those. But before I do, click that subscribe button now. You are not going to want to miss other great videos that come out about parenting that can help you have some really good advice that is tested and true. One of the best bits of advice that I received as far as the baby years go happened when I was in a pharmacy with my first baby. So I went to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription because I had just recently had this baby, and I'm trying to master nursing and all the things that have to do with having a baby. And so I took my prescription up to the counter, and the pharmacy was packed. It was a pharmacy in a hospital, and there were so many people in there. It must have been a very busy day for filling prescriptions. So anyway, I took my baby kind of to a back corner of the pharmacy where there was a little bench so I could sit and hold the baby for a minute while I was waiting for them to fill the prescription. Well, I'm waiting and they are not calling my name. And the baby starts crying, fussing. I'm trying to give the baby a pacifier. I'm trying to, gently bounce the baby, kind of singing to the baby a little bit. And I know this baby is hungry, okay? Because now we've been sitting there a long time and all I'm hearing is screaming. And everybody in the pharmacy is hearing screaming too. And I am acutely aware that I am annoying probably every other person in this pharmacy. Although they're being very kind, they're not looking at me, they're not acting like they're bothered, But it was a really hard experience, and I would say stressful for me at the time. And finally I thought, are they never going to call for my prescription? I'm just going to have to leave. I'm going to have to take this baby out. This is just getting too long. Because it was probably 20 minutes of crying at this point. And I'm trying to console the baby, and I can't because I know he's starving. So I go up to the counter and I say, I'm sorry, my name is this, but I can't stay. This baby is having too hard of a time, and I'll just have to come back another time, but could you please fill it and I'll come back. And they said, oh, your name is what? And I told them my name, Nicholeen Peck, and they said, oh, we called your name a long time ago. Maybe you didn't hear us. And I thought, yeah, probably not, because my baby was screaming for so long. So they said, here you go. I got the prescription, and I was walking out. And this woman who was close to the desk, who had seen everything that I had been through, she tapped me on the arm as I passed by, and she looked into my eyes and she said, it doesn't matter where you are. When that baby is hungry, you feed that baby, and you don't care what anybody else thinks. And I thought, she's right. Why was I worried about what anybody else thought around me? I needed to do what was best for my child. Well, this is a larger principle than just related to feeding babies and nursing. So when I did treatment foster care for troubled teens, I knew that I needed to be consistent. No matter what, if they were dealing with compulsive lying, kleptomania, I had to check for stolen items, and I had to tell them that's not an honest statement. We needed to fix it. We needed to teach them the skills they needed for controlling the impulse to lie. We needed to teach them basic things like how to follow instructions, how to communicate in a way that was calm, using skills like disagreeing appropriately. So I was going to teach them all of these things, and I was going to do it in a very consistent way. So what if we were at the store? What if I was at a family party? What if I got called into the school because the child was having a problem at school? Would I put my parenting on hold because of other people around that were going to be watching? No, because the principle that I learned with feeding my baby in that time in the pharmacy was, if your child needs something, you do what they need. You help them. You don't care who else is looking on. You have a role, and that role is parent, nurturer, teacher, and you've got to live up to it at any time that it's required. If I was at a store or at a family party, I would use the same words of correction that I would use at my own home. Now, here's the thing. Many parents think, and this is probably some of the worst parenting advice, many parents think that sometimes you have to be heavy-handed when you're disciplining your children in order to get them to change, that you have to instill fear into their hearts. But actually, that is not true. And if you adopt that mentality with your parenting, you're not going to be able to be consistent. When you are on a subway, when you are on a vacation and you're in a line at Disneyland, you are not going to want to be heavy-handed. And so you won't be consistent with your children. So then you'll start doing other things which will teach them to manipulate. It will also teach them that what you really are doing at home is probably not a best practice. So you've got to have the skills and things that you need to make sure that your parenting can maintain its consistency all the way along. In fact, I've had multiple situations where I have done some parenting with my child in a public setting, maybe at a church party or something like that, and someone would come up to me and say, I can't even believe what I just saw. How did you do that? You were so calm and so intentional, and your child was so calm, and it seemed like it was a happy moment, and you were doing a correction. How did that happen? And I would say, oh, well, there's certain skills that our family uses, and so our children know how they're going to be corrected every time. They don't have anxiety about it. They don't worry that we're going to do something that would maybe be mean or unkind. And they were amazed by that, truly amazed at what that bit of planning could do. In fact, that's one of the things that led to me teaching all the things I teach about self-government, is because people noticed something different when I was on a BBC program back in 2009 called The World's Strictest Parents. Another piece of the best parenting advice I received had to do with bonding with my children. There was a time at the very beginning of my parenthood when somebody explained to me that nursing a baby is not just about food getting to the baby. And that's why really it's important that, mom and baby are there together, because actually it's about bonding. And that if for some reason, you're not able to nurse or whatever it is, your circumstances are, because everybody's are different, that it's a really important thing for mom to think of this time as bonding with baby. And I remember as I would feed my children, I would look into their eyes and just look into their little hearts and souls, and they could see in mine, and they could feel that love and that connection. And over time, as I've corrected my children, praised my children, as I've had meetings with my children and planned for how to help them overcome troubling behaviors or manage issues that they're dealing with, whether they were my own biological children or the foster children that I raised, I would look at them deeply, and I would increase that bond. I would be thinking about how much I love that person, even when I'm in a moment of correcting to that person, even when that person is trying to make me hate them through all of their power struggling and manipulative tactics. I would bond to them. And it's really hard to keep hating a person who truly does love you from your heart. When I teach around the world about self-government, I always tell people that self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. But that particular lesson, that teaching in self-government, is best done by a strong bond or a strong relationship. If you destroy the relationship, then that teaching just becomes behavioral modification or just basic training, but it doesn't become something that changes the heart. When a person truly has self-government, when they desire to be the best versions of themselves, they have had a change of heart. And that change of heart usually occurs because they have felt the heart of their parent too. I know many people want to do positive parenting, want to have heart-to-heart connections with their children, but in so doing, they oftentimes end up coddling their children and not teaching their children the skills they really need for success. But you can have both. You can teach your children what they need, even correct them, and have a good and lasting bond with them if you are prepared and you've bonded with them all the way along, and when you correct them, you have skills in place that help you communicate with them in a way that is not manipulative or power struggling. That's some of the worst and some of the best, but I would like to share with you more parenting advice in a video called The Best Parenting Advice I Received. And you can learn more lessons that will hopefully transform your heart, your child's heart, and your overall parenting practices.